that Berlin clock is in K4 and not K5.
That would make sense if you have to have K4 to fix
if
or
he's
to
trying
solve it.
Yeah, otherwise Sanborn is a real jerk.
Yeah,
right?
he's jerking
he's a
you
total
around.
jerk. Yeah. So.
I guess I just keep thinking, 97 characters. That's a small enough set that you could have. If you have two different encryption, and you're really smart about it, right? It could literally be the same letters with two different encryption codes with two separate messages that are all 97 letters. I think that's possible.
So you're saying
it's not easy, but
it's not easy. It would be really tricky, but I'm saying that it could just be two different cipher sets, right? And that would also, for me, I'm sorry, this may be like jumping ahead a little bit, but for me, when I look at all of the errors that are included in all of the other ones, that's kind of what it looks like to me, is that the shift would be different. And so a different message with different sets of errors would appear in like K1, for instance, right? That like if there were a separate message included in there, those X's would go away and suddenly they become A's and it's a totally different set of, whatever. And so I guess for me, I don't think it's likely that is the case, but it's a possibility that I keep coming back to.
That would be genius level encryption to me.
Yeah, I agree.
So you're saying essentially that...
but there are a lot of errors in this, so he could have done it wrong. He could have thought he did it perfectly great.
It's true.
Yeah, but
and it turned out no.
But
and they're both decipherable now.
Yeah, but I saw if I'm reading it correctly, you're saying essentially the same message can mean two entirely different things.
I'm saying that the same set of letters given two different encryption codes could be two separate messages.
Could be two different things, and that's entirely, and that would explain a lot of things, like you say, the stray weird characters and the spellings and stuff, where they had to sort of shoehorn these things together, and so that's entirely possible. A lot of people have pondered that exact question, but that's just a little too fiendish. On the other hand,
I'll stand that for now.
Yeah. Okay, so
we've got Berlin clock.
Oh yeah, we're at Berlin clock. Okay, and again we got two messages. Presumably, there's at least 23 characters in K5. And by the way, Berlin clock. Do Google on that. And if you haven't heard of it, it's a famous clock. Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's one of those clocks that you have to sit down and figure out how to use it and how to tell time by it. And then you never use it again because it's a pain in the butt. You got to kind of do some math in order to tell what the time is.
Right, because it uses.
Can you give me like a high level
colored shapes? So I think there's a red circle. Then there's a bar below that is divided into three pieces, and each piece lights up in yellow. It's basically this weird semi-binary clock.
Yeah.
You would have to be really, really versed in that kind of stuff and use it all the time in order to understand the combination of lights. This means 6:30, but this means 6:42.
Yeah.
It
is. So it's like I think there's like three red ones up near the top, three red rectangles, and those denote 15 minutes each. Yeah, and then so if like three of them are lit up, let's say.
It's four, right? It's at 4.
There's 4 at the top, and those are 4 increments of like 15 minutes each. And so if those little guys, 3 of them are lit up, then it's okay, 45 minutes after the hour, and then you go down further to find out what the hour is and stuff. And you got to do.
It's super complex.
Yeah, it's a little it's not conceptually difficult, but it's kind of a nuisance if you just want to know what the time is real fast.
But people dig that stuff. You see watches like that all the time. There's, the binary watches. I've already said binary, but there's a couple of different ones. I don't know if you never saw this, Devin, but Joe, I don't know. You remember that watch that I had that had the hollow center and the light? That thing was cool, but a giant pain in the butt to use. Again, it's just kind of a cool factor kind of thing.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to invent a timepiece that just whenever you want to know the time, you press a button and it just drops out gold bars and a certain number of gold bars for the hour. And wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. I think you're going to have to go into alchemy for that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, so 1 gold bar for each hour and then a bunch of Krugerrands for the minutes. Does that work? Okay.
That works.
I like that, yeah. So the big question is will K4 and K5 be decoded? Well, probably sooner or later they will. But does it solve everything? And not quite, because Sanborn said this in 1991, and I'm quoting him here. Once the plate is deciphered, I'm not convinced the true meaning will be clear even then. There's another deeper mystery. Yeah, what a jerk.
Yeah. Really.
Okay, so let's stop here, because I know we're about to go into mystery number 2. My concern with this whole thing is we talked about it before, the mistakes and him saying they were intentional. I work in an area where you take artistic license to things, and I work with some people who will seriously manipulate things to make them look right. And the problem is that then very dramatically changes them and changes their meaning, whether it be in text or imagery or illustrations or whatever, or in this case, a series of letters.
Well, that's
that's why I really worry that this thing is completely screwed up, because he's quote unquote massaged the letters around and blown the whole thing apart.
Honestly, I feel like that quote from him of like, once it's deciphered, I'm not sure, is totally him just covering his butt, because he like realized 10 years later, he was like, oh crap, I totally messed that up. And it's not going to mean anything. On the other hand, maybe not.
I tend to think he probably did some proofreading before he put the whole thing up.
But he didn't, because it was 10 years later that he was rereading the plain text.
And he found that one error.
What was the one error that dramatically changed it?
Well, it didn't dramatically change it. It changed two words at the end.
Are we going to talk about that?
Yeah. Okay, originally, at the end of the second message, it looked like it said by the code and everything. It decided, and this is just entirely coincidental, serendipitous, I guess. It decrypted to the last three words: ID by Rose. Yeah, so ID by Rose. But it turns out that what he had intended to do is he had intended to put another X in there as a delimiter to the previous sentence, and then had the two words layer 2 appear after that. And so when he left that out,
he removed the X to make it look proportionate.
Yeah, exactly. So when he left that out, and it went from saying layer 2 to just saying ID by Rose, and that's just a pure coincidence that it actually translated to something coherent.
See,
it's just as likely that it could have translated to something just gibberish.
That's why
that's why you're wondering if
about
maybe
this.
the same message with two different keys could translate to two different things.
Because it totally could.
And that would totally explain.
There's no spaces. There's no nothing, right? So
that would explain some of the things like the X's and the misspellings.
Yeah.
I know.
Exactly.
Or
and also,
imagine this. Imagine that you're reading left to right, line after line. What if it's you're reading columns?
Well, or I mean, the other thing even is like maybe you're reading right to left, because you can go all the way around these things, right? I mean, they are intentionally punched all the way through.
Yeah, you could step around to the other side of it and
then it's a totally different message.
You could read it backwards. Yeah, I know.
You read left to right from the other side, and suddenly it's a totally different, so I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff here that...
Yeah, well, one of the reasons I have wondered about the top to bottom thing, the columnar thing, is that some of the words and the misspellings and stuff, like the last word in the first message was illusion. But it's spelled with a Q instead of an L, so it's IQLU, so occlusion. And I seriously wondered, because he said he's left letters out too, deliberately, and I wondered if actually the word he's actually misspelled wasn't illusion after all.
Inclusion?
Occlusion.
Or
occlusion is the word I'm thinking. Occlusion, because it makes sense. I mean, he's talking about shadow and darkness and all that stuff. So he says, between subtle shading and the absence of light lies the nuance of illusion. But occlusion fits that a lot better when you think about it.
Kind of.
Occlusion is like the absence of light. Essentially, when you occlude something, you block the light and you shade it and stuff.
Or
so to me,
blood vessels, or
or that kind of thing too. But occlusion. So I wondered if occlusion. So in other words, he put a Q in there because he needed to. Otherwise, he would have had to put two C's in there, an O and a C and a C, and so he needed to toss out one of those C's, and so he put the Q in there instead to do the same job. So IQ instead of OCC, which would explain, and again, this is all tendentious. It's like I am not actually going to spend a huge amount of time trying to crack this one because I've just got too much to do. I don't have 400
There's a lot of people
hours.
With bigger brains who have not managed to do it. Then probably it's not worth the time for you or I to do.
It's one of those dealios where I just thought, okay, I'll give it like half an hour just because it'd be so cool if all these people have been beating their brains out over it, and if I was able to sit down and just crack it,
I just entered it into text editor and figured it out.
Yeah. You know, has anybody ever thought to put this into Microsoft Word and then switch over to Wingdings?
I mean, really though. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna try that. Actually, I'm not gonna try that.
Or just do detect language on like Google Translate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
try that too. Yeah.
Just try to let it, see if there's another language in there. Because Google's pretty good at like trying to decipher. Google's like your sober friend. Like you can type some like really messed up words in there, and it's like, oh, did you mean this? Because it understands somehow.
I get a feeling if you type this, Google probably knows this very well, and probably if you type it in there, Google's gonna say like, "Nice try, dude."
Yeah.
Yeah.
We solved this 20 years ago.
Nice try, dude. Back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but back to our thing. So there apparently, according to him, there are riddles to be solved, and that will lead you, as I said, he made reference to something being hidden somewhere, probably in the grounds of the CIA in Langley.
On level 2.
He actually gave on level 2, whatever that means. Layer 2, actually. He said layer 2.
Mm-hmm. That's another one, right? Where it's like, he's obviously telling us like, there's another layer to this code.
Yeah,
and maybe it is. And maybe he's just playing this mind game, right? Where every time somebody says, hey, is it this? He's like, no. Like ID by Rose. Like that could be, I'm sure that people have experienced this or explored this already, right? But ID by Rose could be another part of the cipher that exposes the second layer.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be, right?
Yeah,
Rose could be the other part.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And by the way, there is a discussion forum for these cryptos nerds out there. If you really want to get intensely involved in this, I'll definitely put the link out there too. You have to, I think, send them an email and ask for membership. They have to be admitted to the group. And
you have to prove that you're not like a spy,
a bot, or a Russian. Actually, you probably get extra points for being a Russian, but. So they've been discussing it. They still are, as far as I know.
So is that mystery? Mystery one? Okay.